Okay, welcome back, everybody. It's another week. We were actually supposed to be, in the barbershop, but that didn't work out last second. Too bad, because I really need a haircut. But I am Yossi Loloyan, and I make videos about Torah and Jewish life. Today, we're going to talk about some interesting stuff. Just wanted to make sure the audio was working. So now I know that it is. And one second. Let me just take care of this. Okay. And today we're going to talk about, number one, like always, we're going to go and just read the summary of the Parsha. And we're going to talk about some interesting stuff. We're going to talk about shatnez, not story about not mixing wool and linen. We're going to talk about, the title of the video was all about being buried with, someone who came back just so their tooth would be buried with them. We'll talk about that and some other interesting stuff. At the end, I'm actually going to share a video from last year. The audio last year wasn't that great, but I tried to clean it up as much as I can. It's very, very funny. Somebody came into the show, came into the barbershop, and it was just a very fun and funny interaction. It's possible that many people watching this know who this person is. But yeah, I thought that was something that I would share at the end. And like always, all the learning that we're doing is for the protection of the soldiers out there, the protection of the entire Am Yisrael, for the hostages to come back home, for peace all over the world, for Mashiach to come when it says that the nations will turn their weapons to plowshares. May that be today. A lot of crazy things happening in the world, but right now it's time to learn some Torah. So let's do the summary of the Parsha quickly. So Ki Seitzei means when you go out. It's talking about when you go out to war, and it includes the laws of beautiful captive, inheritance rights of the firstborn, the Ben Seir Omer, rebellious son, the burial and dignity of the dead, which we're going to talk about, returning a lost object, sending away the mother bird. Also, we're going to talk about a very beautiful story about that, and the obligation that we have to build a makkah. If someone has a roof, they have to build a fence so that no one will get hurt, and the prohibition to mix certain things together, like we said, wool and linen and different foods, and certain animals are not allowed to work together. And it talks about certain penalties for adultery or for rape, a husband who falsely accuses his wife of infidelity, who is allowed to, marry into Jewish lineage, and different people and their status when they convert to Judaism, and a few other things, including Yibum Chalitza. Last year, actually, we talked about some interesting things about Yibum and Chalitza. Anyway, we're going to get into the Parsha right now. So, Parshas Ki Seitzei. So, one of the things that it talks about is the pasuk says, "Loi solin nivlasei al ha'etz, ki kaver sikberenu b'yemahi, ki kilas elikim toli v'loi Sorry, my handwriting is hard to read. So that is basically saying that you cannot leave a body overnight. You must make sure that he is buried that day. You're not allowed to disgrace the body. So the Radvaz, who is a halachic authority, he was asked the question about going to Eretz Yisrael. If let's say someone who was buried already, he passed away, and someone who was buried, now they want to move him to Eretz Yisrael. And the question is that allowed, right? There's a lot of laws when it comes to the dignity of the deceased. And his answer was that you have to be very careful because none of the body should be left over. Even the dirt surrounding him should also be put and he should be very, very careful that everything's brought with him, and then he can be taken to Eretz Yisrael. And also, if let's say for whatever reason, now there's an extra because they're taking him out of that burial plot outside of Eretz Yisrael. Now it is opened up for someone else. And is it okay to have two people buried in the same one? So again, if you were diligent in removing everything, including the dirt surrounding, then it's okay. Now I brought this because of what we're going to say right now. Basically, in Maseches Brachos and Maseches Baba Basra in the Gemara or in the Talmud, I love to. I had to. Rabbi Yechanan, it says that he had 10 sons, and they all died in his lifetime. Very, very sad. And he actually kept a tooth of one of his sons because of the pain that he'd been through. And also, in order to show other people, when people, were in despair because of a loss they had, he would be able to take it out and show it to them. And he would say, this is from the 10th child of mine who passed away. And yet, I'm still here and I'm still kicking, so to speak. So that's why he had it. And this from here arises a question, because there's different instances where people were very careful to not have to have their teeth buried with them. So, for example, the Chidah was once asked on behalf of a certain Talmud Chacham, a certain scholar, that he would anytime his tooth would fall out, he would keep it. And now he lost his tooth, and he was very upset because he wanted to bury himself with it. He doesn't know what to do. And the Chidah told him, from this story of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, from this story of Rabbi Yechanan, you can see that you don't have to bury the tooth, and so don't worry about it. But the Chidah himself actually brings down that there are people who are careful about this, even though it's not necessary. They were careful about making sure that the tooth is buried with them. And the Mavar Yabik says that because the soul is I guess partially at least in the bones, and he says, like, if let's say somebody had an amputation for whatever reason, that those bones should be also buried with him. I guess because if someone isn't buried, it causes a delay or it holds back the soul from resting properly. And some people say that it has nothing to do, definitely with a tooth, that the only thing is that once a person dies, so let's say once a person dies, their body, you're not allowed to have any hana from, and it has to be buried with them. But if it fell out before the person passed away, then it might not be an issue. And the Darkei Chaim Shalom, which a certain the author of this sefer, I forgot his name. And it says before that, it says that some people actually go ahead and even though they don't have to, they still keep it. They have it buried with them, their teeth or whatever else it might be, so that they should have it by Tchias HaMesim. That's a very interesting thing, I thought. And then Reb Chaim Shalom, the Darkei Chaim Shalom, I forget what the rabbi's name was. He asked the Minchas Elazar, one of the Munkatcher Rebbes. He said that do people need to be careful about having their teeth buried with them? And the Minchas Elazar said that regular people don't have to worry about it, only for people like the Noda B'Yehuda. It was very, and the Darkei Chaim Shalom said that after a long time, I found a story about the Noda B'Yehuda, and this is the story this is what was mentioned in the title about someone who came back. He came to his son's dream. His son's name was Shmuel, and he found this story in a sefer that was written by the great great grandchild of Reb Zusha Manipoli. And in it he writes that a very interesting story, that the Noda B'Yehuda came to his son Reb Shmuel's dream and said, "I need you to find my tooth, which is next to the Sfarim, I guess wherever they had the Sfarim in their home, and to bury it with me." And his son went and looked next to the Sfarim, and there was a tooth there. Pretty interesting. And you also see that I think it was the Minchas Elazar's grandfather. His uncle made sure that I think they had found the tooth or something, that they buried the tooth with him, and that they had some kind of ceremony where they brought him in, whatever it was at that point. So I guess what you could gather from here is that you have to be very careful, definitely, when it comes to burying that a person, that they're buried properly so that the soul can have proper rest. Now, I wanted to. Another thing that's brought in the parsha here is the prohibition, the isser of cross-dressing. Right? It says lo yilbash gever simlas isha. Man is not allowed to wear a woman's clothing, and there's a lot of different halachic. A lot of halachic debate about how far this goes. Some people say you shouldn't look in the mirror. Some people say, you're not supposed to, take out white hairs to look younger, because that's the things that women do. But the Mordechai, right? I mean, before I say that, in Chabad, it's known the position of the Tzemach Tzedek that even to cut even the beard just a little bit is part of. There's a few issues. One of the main issues, which could be a biblical prohibition, a Isser Deraisa, is because of this. Lo yilbash gever simlas isha. But the Mordechai writes that there are some people who have a lot of hair, like very, very hairy, like very hairy hands or arms. And if they're embarrassed because of it to be seen around people, he says they're allowed to take it off, even if they're, I'm talking about men, because you don't have a greater, a pain than this. Someone who feels so uncomfortable because of having so much hair, where it makes them feel like they can't be around people. So that's not something you have to be aware of. You have to be worried about that. Maybe I'm acting like a woman because I'm taking off hair to look more, to look better or more presentable. And the Ramah actually says, the Ramesh Ishla says, he was basically the Beis Yosef was the pasuk for the Sfardim, and the Ramah, he wrote the I guess you could say the commentary on the Shulchan Aruch for the differences for the Ashkenazim. I think that's correct information. I might be wrong on some details, but yeah. And so he writes that you're basically allowed to take off any hair on the body except for the private area and for men, obviously, private area and the armpits. Now, anyway, I saw this in the Eitzer Ploy Satira, the sefer that I normally use, because it gives so much information, and he suggests that maybe this is why Esav, even though he was allowed to take off his hair, as we see here, he didn't in order to fool his father, because we know that Esav tried to fool Yitzchak by asking him how to, certain questions that made it seem like he was so careful about doing everything that Hashem says, and this could be one of the ways that he tricked his father by saying, even though technically I'm allowed to, take off this hair, I don't, because I'm being extra careful. Interesting observation, interesting suggestion, and I thought it was an interesting thought. Now, here we go on to the next thing, which is a story about Shiluach HaKan. The mitzvah is that, right, when you see, let's say you see eggs and you want to take the eggs to eat, you see it in a nest and the mother's there. First, you have to send away the mother, and then you could take the eggs. And this is, one of these famous mitzvahs that we know, as we learned as a kid, and it's one of the more interesting ones. And it says that this is one of those mitzvahs that for doing it you are granted long life. But anyway, so why do we bring this story up? This thing up now. There's a story connected to the mitzvah of Shiluach HaKen. Very interesting story, and I want you to hear about it. So, in the time of the first, I think the Tsar Nikolai the First. I could be getting the exact Tsar wrong, but basically, when they had the Cantonists, where they would take away children, especially Jewish children, from their families at a very young age and try to indoctrinate them and make them forget about their Judaism. It was a very, very sad time. And this was a decree from this very wicked man. So one of the things they did in order to to get these kids and to make them forget about the Judaism, which unfortunately very few were able to withstand it at such a young age, and a lot of people, they lost their Judaism, and it was one of the greatest tragedies spiritually that we've had. So in order to enforce this, he had people who were, we call them either in Hebrew chaitzfim or in Yiddish chappers, people who would go and grab and snatch children. And unfortunately, there were even some Jews who people who were not very savory people in the Jewish community, very few of them, but they did exist. And they were also, for the money, they sold their soul and turned in the children of their own community in order to be given to the army. And there was one in the town of Karlin, the Mishkanes Yaakov, who was he was based in Karlin. He was actually the student of Reb Chaim of Volozhin, who was a student of the Vilna Gaon. So in his shul, a woman in middle of davening just barges in and says, "Rebbe, they took my kids." Not a Rebbe, he wasn't a Rebbe, but we were Rabbi, a Rav. They took my kids. And they took my kid to the army to draft him. These are tiny little kids, as young, I think, as 5 years old. And there was a man in the shul who was very powerful in the community. He was the Rishakal. He was like the head of the community, not the rabbi. He was like, in charge of many things. He was very, very influential, very important. He was very rich. And he, unfortunately, was one of these people who cooperated to give Jewish children to the Tsar's army. And he just threw her out. He said, "Get out of here." And, this was a person you didn't want to mess with. But Rabbi Yaakov, who feared only Hashem, fought for this woman. And he said, he took out the Sefer Torah in Shul. He opened it and rolled it to Parshas Ki Seitzei, our Parsha. And he read the Parsha of Shiloh Hakan, and he read the pasuk of Shalach to Shalach Hasa'im, send the mother, Esabanim Tikach, take the children and the eggs, L'cha, for you, Laman Yitav L'cha, so it will be good for you, Varach Tayam, and you will have a long life. When he finished these words, he turns to this man and he said, "You didn't listen to the Torah. You rebelled against the Torah because you first took the child and then you chased away the mother." In other words, he was doing with a play on words and applying that to the situation. He said, "You first took the child and then you sent away the mother." And everyone who heard this and they heard the sincerity of Rabbi Yaakov, they right away left the shul. They went to the home of this man, of this influential but wicked man, and they broke into his house and they found all the children who had been kidnapped in his house, waiting to be shipped off, and they saved them. So I just wanted to bring that story because it's connected to this parsha, and I never heard this story before. And wow, so sad, and at the same time, such a beautiful story. It shows the courage of our leaders, who and that true leadership, who aren't afraid of the consequences that may arise, and they go and fight the good fight. Now, I want to go on to the next thing. So the parsha speaks about shatnez. That you're not allowed to mix wool and linen. And there was a story. Here's another. I'm reading a lot of stories this week. I love stories. What can I say? There's a story about a certain tailor who didn't care about providing clothing that was kosher, in the sense that didn't have a wool of mix and linen. Didn't have a mix of wool and linen. And he, and many Jews wore shatnez because they didn't know. They thought, he was trustworthy. And he ended up passing away, and they buried him. And then the next day in the cemetery, they found his body just lying on the floor. not in in his burial place. And people thought, maybe they didn't bury him deep enough, and therefore, animal came and dug him out of the dirt and dragged his body. So they buried him again and deeper, and they made sure to do it properly. But then again, they found him outside of his burial place, and they realized that there must be something more here. So they went to the Rav of the town, who happened to be a very, very great man, and they asked him, what to do. So he went and davened that the dead person should reveal what it is, and the dead person revealed himself. And the reason why he's not being buried is because he did this sin of causing other Jews to wear a mixture of wool and linen without their knowledge. And the Rav davened for him to be able to be buried, and that the case should be further sent up, so that he should have whatever it is. He should have judgment and justice in the next world, but at least he should be buried. And the Minchas Elazar, not the Minchas Elazar, sorry, the Eitzer Plesatera, again, this sefer, he suggests that another reason could be based on a sefer, and I always learn new things, and it's thanks to because I'm doing this show, and that's probably the thing I love the most about doing the parsha, is that I get to learn more stuff. There's a sefer called Sefer Ha'ira, and it's Rashi students. They put a lot of literature put together, and this Sefer Ha'ira is part of that literature that they compiled, and it's Rashi's, it's Rashi's. It's a lot of Rashi's Piskei Dinim, or discussions in halacha, I believe. I only glanced at what exactly it was, but Sefer Ha'ira, this is Rashi's Sefer. So I don't know if maybe someone who's watching this didn't know that either. So Rashi has a Sefer that he wrote, that Sefer Ha'ira, or that was of his writings and his teachings, that it's called Sefer Ha'ira. And he writes that one of the reasons, even though we know Shatnez is one of those mitzvahs that primarily is that we just accept and we don't understand it, but he says one of the reasons is because Cain and Hevel, right, the Adam's two sons, Cain ended up killing Hevel because he was jealous. They both brought karbonos. Now, Cain brought flaxseed, and Hevel brought wool because he brought animals, sheep. And so Hashem made a decree that the offering of the sinner and of the righteous cannot be mixed together. And perhaps because of this also, Mida Keneged Mida, that the earth didn't allow this person who was a sinner to be buried with and mixed with people who in general were, God-fearing and did the right thing. Just a suggestion. It was an interesting suggestion. And again, I don't remember ever learning this, so I thought that was really interesting, that one of the reasons for Shatnez is because Cain and Hevel and not mixing. Very, very interesting. Now, the last thing I want to speak about, and I just want to say, guys, there's been a lot of things, very, very busy lately, and so a lot of times I don't get to doing the Haftarah like I've been trying to do in Pirkei Avos, but I want to bring something from the Rebbe, something very, very short, something very, very inspiring. So our parsha talks about going out to war, and it's a known thing that this is not talking about just physical war, which is very relevant to now, how a war should be conducted. And actually, this war right now is actually not even the war that's being spoken about in this parsha, because that's it's talking about Melchemes Reshus, and this is not a Melchemes Reshus. This is not an optional war. This is a war that we must wage against those who try to destroy us and who took our family. But this war is talking about also the war that we have with our Yetzer Hara. And what's interesting about the parsha, it says that when you go out to Milchama, if you go out to war, what does it say? It's talking about when you go to war and you win and you have captives. So then how do you deal with, the Yafas Torah, the beautiful woman, and, how to marry her? But what's interesting is that first pasuk says, when you go out to war, Hashem will, right? Hashem will give him into your hands, and you will have captives. It's almost like a promise. And the Rebbe says, and it's part of a much bigger sicha, obviously, but the Rebbe is saying here that if a person just goes out to war, he says, I am going to venture out to fight my Yetzer Hara, just that decision itself ensures that Hashem will give him to your hand, that you will win and you will prevail. and you will be able to beat Yetzer Hara and to do the right thing. Not only will you beat him, though, also Vishavisa Shivya, you will have captives. Which when you have captives, it means that now someone from that camp is now in your control. And what that means is that you will be able to take whatever it is that was before, something you had to fight against, something that was an obstacle, and you'll be able to refine it to the point where it goes back to its shirish, to its source, and in its source, everything is holy. And so you're actually going to be able to take it and use it for godliness. And it's such a powerful message. That sometimes the famous song "Kol Olam Kulei," the whole world is Gesher Tzar is a very narrow bridge. And what's the ikar? Not to be afraid. Meaning, if a person just goes out in confidence, says, "I'm going to fight. I'm going to war with my Yetzer Hara, with the not good elements in me, whatever, may it be laziness or jealousy or whatever, a great sin, a small sin, we don't know, whatever it is. The second you say, I'm going to fight it, there is a promise. Hashem will give him to your hand, and you will be able not only to win, because if you beat it, okay, you beat it, but it remains as it is, but you will actually be able to turn it into an asset for serving God. So that should give us a lot of chizuk, a lot of strength, a lot of strengthening, and again, may we see a strong and quick end to this war, where there's a complete victory for Am Yisrael with Mashiach Tzidkenu. And as I promised, we're going to end this off by saying thank you for being here. If you made it to the end, you're a legend. Wait to see this clip from last year. It's funny, and I just let the whole thing run. It's about 6.5 minutes long. Enjoy. Good Shabbos, guys. Please smash the like button, subscribe, and consider supporting the channel. And actually, I wanted to say one more thing. I forgot what I think there was a story that I wanted to put in the description that was related somehow. I may do that, I may not. Anyway, watch this clip. It was pretty funny. 6.5 minutes long. An interaction we had last year, Parshas Ki Seitzei, me and Ilya. This way you get to see Ilya, even though he's not here live. Good Shabbos, guys.
In the intro? Come. He's a local celebrity. We gotta get him in here.
Yeah, we got it.
Come in here. Come on.
Talking about the Parsha.
Come over here. Everybody say hello to a very famous Israel. Turn around. Turn this way and say hello.
No, that's.
Come on, shit. You can't wave?
No, I want to.
He said, what is this?
This is what we're doing. This is what we do. We're doing a part. We do every week. We do a show on the Parsha.
Yeah.
We talk about the Parsha. So, for example, this week we talked about the Cher and David Gershon. We spoke about.
What does it do with me? I cannot manage with one wife.
That's what I said. That's what I thought. He said we had a story of a story in Yerushalmi with 12 wives. I said, I can't have one woman. You know what I'm saying? But he thinks it's a good idea. I don't know.
What thing is good idea?
Because the Torah says you gotta procreate as much as you can. So therefore, I'm trying to get an edge on things. Hold on, what are you doing?
What are you talking about?
We're on camera.
What's that?
Can you send a message? Can you say that you endorse what we're doing here? We're learning Torah.
Can endorse what you're doing
He
here.
doesn't even know what we're doing.
We're learning Torah.
Whoa. I've seen Torah. You ever see a Tanakh?
Yeah.
You know, how sure I don't mean you. Now, how the Elef the missionaries, came in with an exact same Tanakh. Exact copy.
Okay.
How did you know which Tanakh is it?
You're right. So you have to
Answer my question.
How do you know?
Yeah.
Oh, you're saying in Lashon Kodesh?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Exactly the same Tanakh. Mama should check every word. How did you know?
I don't know.
Every now and then, you'll find the comments. You know what comments is?
Okay.
The comments, Look, it looks like a Salem. They on the compass like this.
No way.
And they had a little piece on top. So if you look at it,
Like a cross.
Not like a
Are you
cross.
serious? Why in the world would they do something like that?
They want the missionaries. They want to bring the Salem Yamash. And you, what are you, a Sfari or Ashkenazi? Yes, are you a Sfari or Ashkenazi?
Oh, man. What does that have to do with anything?
Yeah, because I see your mind is not working too good.
Yeah, really?
Wow, that's very serious.
That figures it got to be Ashkenazi. If it's not working too good, it means you're Ashkenazi.
Oh, okay.
They are strong.
You're fast on your feet, I see.
Okay. So then, I think Rabbi, so you have
First introduce
you have to
yourself
watch
to
the
the camera.
show.
Hold on, let him introduce himself to the camera.
What? What's the camera?
Turn around,
Yeah.
say, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining. My name is so-and-so.
Now, good night, Shabbos Kodesh.
Okay, good job.
Have each and every one. Jeder Eid in the world. Those are, they were fortunate to put up from those that yet have not been fortunate, but they are fortunate enough, and they will become 100% plus. The Ebershter will catch up with them the time that they were missing it. He will pay everyone, every single Eid will have nothing but the best. And everything, begashmis and beruchnis, revealed. Revealed means you'll be able to count on the table. You'll be able to see each and every child of yours that are really, really tzivus Hashem. And this every one of us should see immediately before Shabbos Simon.
Amen.
Should be zeicher that from this here, immediately, we are already together. The whole world is together. You see how everyone is coming, and the millions are coming to the Rebbe. Because we are already there. Because it says, when Mashiach will come, don't expect you'll see miracles. The world will continue going as it is. But we are fortunate to see the entire world coming physically. You see them coming to the source of the Chaim, which the Ebershter brought to Moshe Rabbeinu, which today the Rebbe is exactly what Moshe Rabbeinu starts, and he is the one that brings it complete to us. So the Eresh, therefore, we should see it revealed. Begashmi is Chove by everyone of the Eden.
Amen.
And everyone that a little not here should be completely here. Take it from Yad Mamash.
Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Who do we have? Who are we speaking to?
My name is Yisrael Shamtov.
Thank you. Thank you for that message. Appreciate that.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that.
Yo, take us out, even though I don't know how you're going to compete with that. But,
Yeah, right?
no, I'm sorry.
How can you possibly compete with that?
Why, Moshe, will you keep on 1 second? What do you have to say for yourself?
Thank you. Thank you everybody for joining us. This was our guest speaker, Israel Shemtov.
Hello.
Everybody knows